Most people think Airbnb horror stories are just exaggerations, creepy things that people post online for attention. But sometimes the stories are real. Sometimes the door that was supposed to be locked slowly opens in the middle of the night. And sometimes the person standing outside your bedroom door isn't the host. Tonight, I'm going to tell you 3 disturbing Airbnb horror stories that actually happened, and after hearing them, you might think twice before booking your next stay.
Ryan had been driving for almost 8 hours when he finally decided he needed to stop for the night. He was moving across the state for a new job, and he didn't want to spend money on a hotel if he didn't have to. So while sitting in a gas station parking lot somewhere in rural Pennsylvania, he opened the Airbnb app and started scrolling. Most of the listings nearby were either booked or expensive. But one place immediately stood out. It was a small guest room in an old house about 15 minutes away. The price was extremely cheap, almost suspiciously cheap. But the photos looked normal. Clean bed, small desk, a simple room with wooden floors. The host had decent reviews too. People described the place as quiet and convenient for travelers passing through. Ryan booked it without thinking too much about it. 20 minutes later, he pulled into the driveway of a large, dark house surrounded by trees. It looked older than it did in the pictures, but not in a bad way, just old. A single porch light was on. The host had sent him instructions saying the door would be unlocked, and his room was upstairs at the end of the hallway. Ryan grabbed his bag, walked up to the house, and pushed the front door open. Inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. The inside of the house smelled old, like dust and wood. The lights in the hallway were dim, casting long shadows across the walls. Ryan called out, "Hello?" No answer. He checked the message again. The host had said they might not be home and to just make himself comfortable. So Ryan walked up the stairs slowly, his footsteps creaking on the wood. At the end of the hallway, he found the room from the photos. It looked exactly the same. The same bed, the same desk, the same lamp. He dropped his bag, locked the bedroom door, and sat on the bed. Everything seemed normal. But something about the house felt strange. It was the kind of quiet where you feel like someone is listening. Ryan tried to ignore the feeling. He was tired, and he had a long drive the next morning, so he turned off the lamp and went to sleep. Around 2 in the morning, Ryan woke up. At first, he wasn't sure why. Then, he heard it. Footsteps. Slow footsteps moving through the hallway outside his door. Ryan sat up in bed, listening carefully. The host must have come home, he thought. The footsteps stopped right outside his room. Ryan waited. Then he heard the doorknob move. It twisted slowly. The door didn't open because he had locked it. But whoever was outside kept turning the handle, again and again. Ryan finally said, "Hello?" The handle stopped moving. Silence filled the hallway. Then the footsteps slowly walked away. Ryan didn't sleep again that night. When the sun came up, Ryan packed his things quickly. He felt embarrassed about how scared he had been. It was probably just the host checking the room. Before leaving, he sent a message through the Airbnb app. He wrote, "Hey, I think someone tried opening my door last night around 2 a.m. Just wanted to check if that was you." A few minutes later, the host replied. The message was short. "I'm sorry, but I'm not home this week." Ryan stared at the screen. He replied, asking if anyone else had access to the house. The host responded again. "No, the house should be empty." Ryan left immediately. He never found out who was in that hallway. The second story happened to a woman named Lisa who booked an Airbnb while visiting Chicago for a weekend concert. The apartment was small but modern. It was located inside a large building with dozens of other units. When Lisa arrived, everything seemed perfect. Clean kitchen, comfortable couch, and a nice bedroom facing the street. She spent the evening exploring the city and came back around midnight. After getting ready for bed, she noticed something strange. Above the bookshelf in the living room was a small black object. It looked like a smoke detector, but it wasn't on the ceiling. It was pointing toward the couch. Lisa stared at it for a moment. Then she grabbed a chair and climbed up to get a closer look. Her stomach dropped when she realized what it was. It was a tiny camera. Lisa immediately felt sick. She checked the bedroom. Another camera. This one was hidden inside a small hole in the wall near the air vent. She started shaking. Someone had been recording the entire apartment. She grabbed her phone and started filming everything. Then, she contacted Airbnb support and the police. While waiting for them to arrive, she sat in the living room staring at the front door, terrified that someone might try to come inside. But the worst part wasn't finding the cameras. It was realizing they were connected to Wi-Fi, which meant someone could have been watching live. When the police arrived, they searched the apartment and found 2 more hidden cameras. All of them were carefully concealed. The host was arrested later that week. Investigators discovered that he had been secretly recording guests for months. Lisa never stayed in an Airbnb again after that night. She said the worst feeling wasn't fear. It was the realization that someone might have been watching her the entire time. The third story is the one that people find hardest to believe. But the man who experienced it says it's the reason he will never travel alone again. His name was Daniel. He rented a small cabin through Airbnb while hiking in Colorado. The listing looked beautiful, a quiet wooden cabin deep in the forest with mountains in the background. It looked peaceful. The nearest town was almost 30 minutes away. Daniel arrived just before sunset. The cabin looked exactly like the photos. Small, simple, and completely isolated. At first, he loved it. Until night came. Around midnight, Daniel woke up suddenly. There was a light outside. At first, he thought it was just the moon. But when he looked through the window, he saw something moving between the trees. A flashlight. Someone was walking slowly through the woods. Daniel felt confused. The cabin was supposed to be completely private. The light moved closer. Then it stopped, right outside the cabin. Daniel turned off all the lights inside and stayed completely still. He could hear footsteps outside on the wooden porch. Slow steps. Then, silence. A shadow passed across the window. Someone was standing right outside. Daniel grabbed his phone and quietly opened the Airbnb listing again. He checked the description. It clearly said the property was private and isolated. No nearby houses, no shared space. The shadow moved again. And then someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. Daniel didn't answer. A few seconds later, a voice spoke from the other side of the door. "Hello?" It sounded like a man, but the voice sounded wrong somehow. Too calm, too quiet. The voice spoke again. "I know you're inside." Daniel stayed silent. The man outside knocked again. Then, after a long pause, the footsteps slowly walked off the porch. Daniel didn't move for the rest of the night. When the sun came up, Daniel opened the door carefully. The forest was quiet, but in the dirt near the porch were footprints. Just one set. They came from the trees. And they went back into the trees. Daniel packed his things and drove straight back to the city. Later, he contacted the host and asked if anyone else lived nearby. The host responded with confusion. According to him, the cabin property was surrounded by miles of empty forest. There shouldn't have been anyone out there. Airbnb can be an amazing way to travel. Millions of people use it every year without any problems. But sometimes, the places that look normal online hide things that the photos don't show. Sometimes it's a stranger walking through the hallway of an empty house. Sometimes it's a hidden camera watching from the wall. And sometimes it's someone standing outside a cabin in the middle of nowhere, waiting. So the next time you book a place to stay somewhere unfamiliar, just remember, you might not be the only guest.